Have you ever wanted your house or your kitchen to smell like delicious pastry? Well, if you follow this recipe, you can do that. In this video, we are making fluffy, light, delicious, buttery pastry, but with a twist. They're actually vegan. We're not actually using butter. We're actually using a butter substitute from Flora, which has just come out. It's a plant-based butter, and it makes really, really delicious pastry. Now, making your own pastries does seem kind of intimidating, and to be honest, that's one of the reasons why I have never had a go at making them before, until now. It's not a particularly hard recipe to do, it just takes a lot of patience, and it's a recipe that's spread over at least 2 days. You could push it into 3 if you wanted to, but you can definitely get it done in 2 days. But we've been talking about pastries and stuff at my work, and it just kind of got me inspired to have a go myself. I found a recipe that I've loosely based mine off Claire, who used to work for BA Kitchen, who has now got her own cookbook, Dessert Person. Definitely go and check it out if you are a dessert person. Some amazing recipes. I've tweaked it and we've made it vegan. We're also going to be making some pain au chocolat. And because I like to experiment, I'm going to have a go at making some cinnamon buns. Now, traditionally where I'm kind of from, in the kind of Midlands, cinnamon buns are normally made with like a yeasted sweet dough. And I like that, but when we go down to Cornwall and we go down to the south, quite often cinnamon buns are made with a kind of puff pastry. And to be honest, I prefer the cinnamon buns with puff pastry. I just think it's a little bit lighter, a little bit airier. It just balances out a little bit more. I think doughy cinnamon buns are nice, but they are a bit too heavy for me sometimes. So this recipe is completely vegan. We're using vegan butter, we're using a bit of vegan cream and a little bit of oat milk just to go onto the top to give it a bit of a glaze. All that being said, let's zip into the kitchen and let's make our pastry. So here we have our simple ingredients. So we have some bread flour, we have some salt. We're also using some whole wheat flour, some fast active yeast, some sugar, and some vegan butter as well. So first of all, we want to activate the dry active yeast and do something called blooming. So we're just adding a bit of hot water to our yeast, giving it a little stir, and then just letting that sit for about a good 5 minutes or so. Next, in a stand mixer, we add our flour, salt, and sugar. And then just on a really low speed, we're just going to mix that just so it can incorporate a little bit. Next, we're going to add some of the butter that we've just melted in a little pan, and then we add our activated yeast. Now we're just going to weigh out some of our water, and we're just going to add a little bit more water. And then on a medium-sized speed, we're just going to start getting that mixing up, just so it starts coming together as a shaggy dough. Next, we're going to just tip it out onto a work surface. I'm using a chopping board, and then just gently knead it together. I prefer finishing the dough off by hand just so you can have a good feel to it. It should be fairly firm and have a bit of elastic to it as well. Next, we're just going to pop it onto some baking paper, and we're just going to try and give it a bit of shape. This is a really good technique that I learned from the book as well. So you just make a little parcel with the baking paper, and then you can kind of measure it up and make sure that it's the right size that you want it to be. And then once it's in a little parcel, you can flip it over and then roll it out so it's a good even square. You just want to make sure that it is even all the way across. Then we're just going to pop this into the fridge for about half an hour, and then we'll start working on our butter. We're going to do the same technique as we did with the dough. We're just going to try and create a simple square, and then we're going to wrap it around with baking paper. We're going to measure it out. This wants to be a little bit smaller than your dough, but make a little parcel like this, and then flip it over. And then using the rolling pin, we just want to flatten it out and make sure that it's a even square again. Next, we're just going to pop that back into the fridge and let it cool down. So these are some of the variations that I wanted to have a go at with the cinnamon bun. So I've got my sugar block, I'm just sprinkling it with a little bit of caster sugar and then a little bit of cinnamon as well. Just thought this might help give another element of sweet and cinnamon through the cinnamon bun as well. But then the process after that is exactly the same. Fold it up into a small little parcel and then roll it out so it's nice and even and flat. Once the dough is rested for about half an hour or so, I take it out of the fridge, pop it on a very lightly floured surface, a little bit of flour on the top as well. And we're just going to roll this out so it's about twice as long. We're just gently rolling the dough out. Then you got to unwrap the butter pack that you've just made and then place that into the centre of the dough. Then you just want to fold it over the top and the bottom just so it meets in the middle. And then you just want to kind of crimp and press down the sides and that top seam as well. Next we turn the dough about 90 degrees and then just gently press it down. This kind of helps stop the butter just squidging out. And then just roll it so it's about twice the length again. And then we're going to do our first buck fold. Bring both sides into the centre and then fold that in half as well. This is the start of our lamination for our pastry. Then what I like to do is just use the rolling pin to press it down a little bit more just to make it a little bit thinner. This will help it cool down and chill quicker. Just a little light flouring on the top and bottom again. And then you can use cling film if you like, but I prefer using a bag that we'll reuse several times. So we'll pop this into the bag, and then a really good tip that I learnt is to write down how many times you're doing the folds. So this is the first round, so we just put a little 1 on it. You want to rest that for a good half an hour and then repeat the process. So we're just going to press down the dough very slightly, flour it a little bit, and then we're going to roll the dough out so we can fold it into another buck fold. Then another little press down just to try and help flatten it out a little bit more. Mark it so we've got another turn. And we're just going to repeat that process one more time. If you want to, you can laminate these more, but I found doing 3 buck folds was enough to have really good lamination. But there is a limit of how many times you can roll it out, I think. If you go too far, then the butter levels get really, really thin. So you can probably do 4, maybe 5 at a push. And this is the last, and it's like a letter fold, so we don't quite fold it into 4, we fold it into 3. So this is the last job that you want to do on day 1. You want to roll it out into a flat big rectangle. Because I'm working on this chopping board and it's not big enough, I'm just cutting the dough into half and then rolling each half out so it's the same kind of size as the chopping board. You can kind of see some of the lamination there already. But this is the last process you want to do on day 1, so the dough can rest ready for shaping in the morning. So because this is quite a big sheet, we're using some cling film. Place it into the cling film and then just wrap it up nice and fairly airtight. If people have got good recommendations for using less cling film or less plastic, please let me know in the description down below. So this is day 2. We've taken our dough out of the fridge. It's been able to rest and develop some of those flavours through the yeast and the flour. We're just giving it a little bit more of a roll out because the gluten's been able to rest a little bit more, so it's got a little bit more stretch again. And then I like to neaten off some of the edges, so just cut the edges off and make it a nice neat rectangle. Next I try and work out the size of the croissant, so this completely depends on how big or small you want your croissants. You just want to stretch out the dough a little bit at the top and at the bottom as well, like so. And then you just roll the pastries up. Make sure the tip is just underneath and just give it a little bop, just to kind of make sure that tip is secure. Then you want to do the same with the rest of your triangles. Place them on your baking sheet with that's lined, and then we're just gonna gently wrap with some cling film, and just gonna pop them aside for a moment. This is the chocolate that I'm using for my pan au chocolat. I've got some nice vegan chocolate that I'm just chopping up that I'm going to pop in, but if you want to, you can have a look online and you can find the actual batons of chocolate that professionals use for pan au chocolat. But the process here is exactly the same, just rolling out a little bit more, squaring off the edges, trying to work out where I want my cups to go. And we're just having these as long rectangles. So you want to do the same kind of process as your croissants. You want to stretch out one end a little bit just on the sides, and then we're just going to place a line of chocolate. If you're cutting up chocolate like me, you can load it up as much as you like. Then you start turning the pastry over, and then once you've kind of done, like, covered the chocolate, then you can put another line of chocolate in if you like, and then just roll it up all the way. And then just repeat the process. Next I'm working on my cinnamon bun recipe. So we've got some melted butter, we've got some light brown sugar, and we've got some cinnamon. Just mixing up in a pan, and we're just going to spread that all over the dough that we've just trimmed up. Now in hindsight, I think I did these quite skinny, and I think I would have been better off making them a bit bigger. So we've proofed our dough for about 2.5 hours to 3 hours. You do this by having a steam bath in your oven, not on, just let that brew for about 2 to 3 hours. Next we're doing the glaze, so we're just getting some vegan cream and some oat milk. We're just gently brushing this glaze onto the pastry. We want to try and avoid again any of the glaze onto the kind of sides where you've got the lamination, because that will help it puff up more. So we're just going to put this glaze on all of them, apart from the cinnamon buns, because I didn't want to put any glaze onto the lamination a bit. This is our pastry, freshly out of the oven, lovely golden and brown. So there you go, those are my homemade vegan pastries. We have our delicious buttery croissants, pan au chocolat, and some cinnamon buns, which, to be honest, I think taste really good. If you do go and check out Claire's book, Dessert Person, go and check out her cinnamon bun recipe, because it is stunning. We've changed the nuts from walnuts in her recipe to pecans, but you can change it to whatever kind of nuts you like, really. It's really, really good. If you're thinking about making them, don't be scared. It's just a lot of time it takes. There's probably like an hour worth of actually baking, but there's like 2 days worth of waiting around. But if you do make them, please let me know. Send photos or videos over to me on Instagram at KnitSlips, and I would love to see your attempts at baking these. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you soon.